Hey, welcome to part two. In this section, we are going to talk about adding color and how to make a few different types of shapes. So let's go. So now that we have this color bar created on, these color chips created on top, these swatches, I guess they would be called, um, let's actually use the eyedropper tool to fill in these shapes. So we'll click on the square here. And what we're going to do is there's a little tool over here that looks like an eyedropper. Click on that. Now, if we have this shape selected, if we click on like the red, it'll fill it with red, blue, blue. We can, off the side of the page, even have a little color palette guide, or even have a photo. If you have photos and things that you've imported, anything, it'll basically select that. It even works with typefaces. But the other cool thing is you'll notice this. I'm going to undo that a couple times. It had this outline around it before. This one doesn't have an outline. It also, when you use the eyedropper tool, it gets rid of the outline. So we're just going to go across each one of these and fill them sort of with just some colors to get started. Go quickly across it. Good practice. So there's a two color shape. That's cool. Let's fill that with like a orange and maybe pink. Hey, that didn't fill with anything. Orange and pink. And we can fill each one of these with a different color. Gold, blue, orange. And I'm just doing this randomly. There's no rhyme or reason to what I'm creating. Let's do that one. Green. Looks pretty cool. Using kind of some muted mid-century modern colors here. Do that with a blue gray. This two color one down here, let's do that. Maybe blue and gold or something like that. You can always come back later and change them. This one here, we just randomly red and maybe like the green on the outside. This one here, we'll do orange on the outside and tan in the middle. So that's how you build color swatches. You can also build a color swatch library with different color swatches, and you can share that library in the Creative Cloud libraries, which we'll be getting to later. It's one of the most powerful tools for working with multiple programs. But now we have some like just cool colors and shapes to work with. For your final project, you'll probably have some different ones. So now what we're going to do next is in the next video, we're going to learn how to modify some of the shapes with rotation tools, maybe some angles. I think we'll probably even use the either the shape building tool, actually probably the shape building tool and the Pathfinder tool. So coming up in another second or two will be the modification part of this, and then finally we'll end with building a final little grid with all these different shapes. So I'll be back in a second. Hey, I'm back. Okay, so back into Illustrator. What we are going to do is let's actually pull this off to the side. We're going to shrink it down, select the whole thing with the marquee tool, kind of shrink it down so it's a little bit more, it's not as distracting. Drag it to the side. Now, the cool thing, and I mentioned this before, is turning these into swatches. You can drag these in the swatch panel, but there's actually a really cool way if you have a whole bunch of different shapes, or even an illustration that has a whole bunch of different colors in it, you can actually turn it into a swatch collection. So let's go down in the window menu and go to swatches and open that up. If it's not opened already, you'll get this panel of all these different swatches. These folders here are swatch collections. So what we'll do is we're going to select that whole group of colors that we've created, and then click on this little hamburger menu here. These 3-line things are called hamburger menus. And then there is a thing here called new color group. Click that. We'll give it a main color group name. Actually, let's call it just the initials for mid-century modern, MCM. Click OK. And now we have this little cool folder with all these colors. We could delete them now and just use these if we really wanted to. So that is actually taking and creating a little swatch group. But what we want to do now is actually play around with some other tools to like change up some of this stuff. Maybe do some fun things with it. The first one we're going to do is the rotation tool, and we're going to do the freehand rotation tool. I know I showed in one of the classes how to turn a shape like this into an eyeball. So we are going to do that with this shape that we created. First, we're going to select it, and we're going to do the option and hold it and shift it up. Now, if we get our selection tool close to one of the corners, you'll see the little curve, free transform rotation arrows. It's a mouthful. On the corner there. If we start rotating that around, we can just kind of randomly rotate it until we're hypnotized. But if we hold the shift key, it'll kind of lock it in place on 45 and 90 degree angles. So let's do that. And there we have, an eyeball shape. One weird thing about when you do that with some of these shapes that you make, they get these boxes around them, and they can be kind of a pain to work with. I'll show in another class this feature. This feature is actually next week. This feature called expanding artwork that can get rid of that. But for now, this is cool for what we need. And so we're going to scoot that up there. Let's take the yellow and just drag one of those to the side as well. I'm going to shift that down for the iris of the eye, and I have no idea why it is not working. Something weird going on there. We're going to go in the tools. In the first class I showed, but not the second class, in the actual tools on the menu bar, there's these tiny little corners down here. If you click on that, it gives you access to all the different tool options. We're going to use the ellipse tool, kind of place it in the center of the eyeball, just roughing of eyeball. Then we're going to hold the shift and the option key, and it'll draw a circle from the center out. If we just held nothing, we could draw any sort of circle. If we hold the option key, it draws from the center out, and if we hold the shift key, it draws a symmetrical shape. It works the same way with squares and all the other shapes like stars and stuff like that. So we've got our eyeball kind of roughing it. We're going to draw another circle inside for the pupil. And start drawing, but then we hold the shift and the option key. It's a little off center, so we're going to kind of scoot that over. And we'll change the color of, we got to get back to the swatches. Change the color of that to black. Let's change it to like some weird red color, orangey red color. Maybe down here. Yeah, that looks cool. Then we're going to create just one more circle to create a little highlight. We'll throw that right off to the side here. We'll hold the shift key to keep it round. And then we're going to make that one white. So now we got a little eye that we can work with. If we pull it, it's like, oh no, it's in a bunch of different shapes. So what we're going to do next is we're going to try to take our selection tool and draw a marquee around the entire thing, and then we are going to group it using group here. The shortcut is Command G, or I think it's Control G on Windows. So now if we move it around, it's all one piece. So we're going to kind of set that to the side to play around with later. Let's take this this eyeball flower petal shape, and let's try something else with it. We'll scoot these down a little bit more. Let's maybe try to make like a flower or something with it. What we could do is with the rotation tool, hold the option. That doesn't work. Okay. Took a pause for a second there to figure out what was going on, but we're back to where we left off, and we've got our little eyeball 45 degree angle shape up here. We are going to, I think we're going to just use a tool instead of like trying to free transform this shape and using the option key. That sometimes can be a little tricky with these shapes that have been modified from other shapes. So there's a tool over here. It's like two little triangles. It's the reflect tool. I think that's what mine's set on. It usually starts out as the rotate tool. So like if you were to click on it and you can rotate it around from an access point, we could kind of do that to create a flower, and maybe we will in a second. But first we're going to create this other cool shape that I stumbled upon that's very, very geometric, kind of mid-century modern feeling again. So we pulled one to the side just as a backup. We've got two backups now, but what we're going to do is we're going to use the reflect tool. So again, we'll hold down on the rotation tool. It brings up a sub menu, or you can click just the O keyboard key and it'll switch over to it, and then click the reflect tool, and we are going to double click on the reflect tool and it'll show where it's going to reflect to, and then we're going to do a copy of it. So now we have this, again, it's kind of like a weird star shape. So that, that's what we're going to have as the basic shape. Now I'm going to actually talk a little bit about the I did this in the first class. It's called a Pathfinder tool, and we're going to make a duplicate of both of these shapes and kind of show some different options of what the Pathfinder tool can do. And I don't even know what's going to happen with some of these. So the first one, we are going to combine this to make this all one solid shape. So let's just color them two different colors to kind of see what happens when we do that. So we got like, even that's cool. We can do that. You could throw a cool circle in the middle of that and look at what, like, let's do that. Just, play around. Like you got a cool yellow circle there. That's a nice looking shape too. But really, you'll start just playing around shapes and shapes and shapes, and maybe we'll even finish up with a quick tutorial on the pen tool today. So we're gonna go and use the Pathfinder tool and do like maybe 3 different effects on these little guys here. Let's go down our window list, find Pathfinder, not the one on Mars. And this first one, we're going to combine these two shapes, it's called the Unite option, and drag over those. Click on the Unite option. It makes it one shape. I haven't talked about the preview and outline modes, but if you go under View at the very top, there's Outline. That basically kind of gives you a wireframe of what's going on in your page, and you can see how we started with these two shapes over the top of each other, and then when we united them, they became just one solid shape, and you saw the orange and the blue colors actually like just become one color. So then we can go back to our view, go to preview on CPU. Used to just be called preview, now it's preview on CPU. Let's go on this one, select both of them, and let's pick another one of these. Just randomly, we're going to go to the next one, see what happens. It just kind of turns it into these 2 points, which is that's kind of cool. I don't know exactly what you'd use it for, but you could rotate that and use those. You can ungroup them. We'll talk about that later. And in this one, let's actually do the this one at the end called exclude. It's basically going to make the middle transparent. It'll have 4 of these little dots, these little points around the edge. Yeah, that's actually a pretty cool one too. That's going to look cool with putting like the circle in the middle. So we're going to throw the circle in there. Just kind of eyeball centering it. Actually, you know what? We're going to do another different kind of shape on the menu. We've talked about the circles and the squares so far, so let's get into some other shapes. Click on that. Let's do the star tool. And the star tool kind of remembers where you left off. I did a 7-point star last time, so it's going to show me a 7-point star. That's pretty cool. But let's say you wanted a different shape star. Click on the screen. At least this is the way I do it. It's like I want a 10-point star. Type in 10, click OK. You got a 10-point star. You can stretch this all different ways to make it, the size you want. You can adjust the in these polygon shapes. You can adjust, how big the center is. That's radius 2. That's kind of the center circle that it's based on. Radius 1 is how far it stretches out all the way out. If you click that, it creates one. And I actually like the 10-point star better. I'm going to save that one, throw that to the side. I'm going to throw the 10-point star in the middle there. I think we have some cool shapes to work with now. You can also color these shapes individually if you use the direct selection tool, I think. Let's check it out. Yeah. Look at that. Cool. So that's coloring, that's using the Pathfinder tool. There's a lot of different things to do with it. We can also make really easy clouds with the Pathfinder tool. That's actually, that's a really great use for it. So let's say you have some circles, like a circle there, a circle, maybe an oval there. You create these kind of Japanese cutesy Japanese I think it's called kawaii or something like that, illustration style thing. So we're gonna say, okay, this is the base for our cloud. Let's see, maybe that should be a little smaller, and maybe that should be a little more there's that circle issue again. Why it doesn't, I don't remember, I can't figure out why that's not stretching. Let's drag another circle in there. Oh man, that's a polygon circle. That's pretty weird. I think that means we're running out of memory. That happens when you get old. So now we got, we're just going to randomly color these in, just kind of show we've got all these different shapes. We've got 3 different shapes, all this. So we want to make that into a cloud. What are we going to do? We're going to take all 3 shapes, use one of my favorite tools, the Pathfinder, click on it. We got a cloud now. Now, if we want the cloud to have a flat bottom, we can actually use the Pathfinder tool again. We're going to switch back this over to a rectangle. We're going to draw a rectangle shape across the bottom, roughly where we want the cloud to be cut off. And then make sure that this shape, color it so you can see, is in front of this shape. And now we're going to take the 2 shapes selected together, and we're going to use I think it's a minus function. Yeah. Click on that. Voila. Look at that cool cloud. And so just with circles and squares, you can make really, really great cloud shapes. So these might be things that you could end up using in your in your design, and we may even do another week playing around with these patterns and push it a little bit further with creating actually repeat patterns and stuff like that. But for now, that's I think we've covered a lot to do with drawing different shapes, creating new unique things. We're going to move on to some more freeform shapes in the next section, probably even getting to the pen tool, and then I'm going to throw one of these little designs together in a minute at the end. So I'll see you in a second.